My husband acquired my company to vent anger for his white moonlight, and that evening, he came home carrying a gift to compensate me. The lawyer suddenly shouted, "President, what you signed is a divorce agreement." His face turned ashen as he snatched the document, but I had already signed it. "Thank you for leaving with nothing. By the way, the company you bought is a shell, and it has 20 billion in debts." He turned and dashed to the company. The next day, his white moonlight saw the news of his bankruptcy and blocked him. At 9 o'clock in the evening, the entrance door lock made a soft click sound. Harrison was back. He stepped in his Italian handmade custom leather shoes, the expensive fabric rubbing against the air, producing subtle sounds. The air was instantly filled with the scent from his body, a mix of cologne and alcohol, a smell I had endured for 3 years in this cold villa. He carried an orange Hermes gift box in his hand, his face bearing that all too familiar, condescending smile. "Celine, not asleep yet?" His tone was light and cheerful, as if today was some occasion worth celebrating. I stood up from the sofa, not looking at him, my gaze falling on the gift box in his hand. That glaring orange color was like a fire burning in my heart. He placed the gift box and a document together on the cold marble coffee table, producing a crisp clinking sound. "Sign it." He pointed to the document, his tone matter of fact, like commanding a subordinate. "I acquired your half-dead broken company. This bag is compensation for your 3 years of hard work." I lowered my eyes, looking at the bold black characters on the document cover. It wasn't any compensation agreement. It was divorce agreement. My fingers gently brushed over those 4 words, the fingertips feeling the slight coolness of the paper. The pent-up frustration in my chest over 3 years seemed to find an outlet at this moment. I picked up the pen without any hesitation. The pen tip glided over the paper, making a rustling sound, as if playing the final elegy for my pitiful 3-year marriage. "Harrison!" A sharp exclamation shattered the false peace in the living room. My best friend, who was also my lawyer Lydia, dressed in a sharp professional skirt suit, rushed in on high heels, her face full of anxiety and panic. "President! You can't sign. What you signed is a divorce agreement." Harrison's smile froze instantly. He turned sharply, his face terrifyingly pale under the crystal chandelier. He lunged forward in one step and snatched the document from in front of me. When he clearly saw the document, especially my already signed name with sharp strokes, his pupils contracted suddenly. "Celine! Are you crazy?" His voice was trembling, his handsome face twisted with shock and anger. "This is a divorce agreement. Did you see it clearly?" I leisurely put down the Parker gold pen in my hand, lifted my head, and for the first time calmly looked straight into his eyes full of disbelief. "I know." I smiled, the corners of my mouth slightly upturned, forming a cold arc. I picked up the glass of Romani Conti that had been prepared on the table, the bright red wine gently swirling in the glass, reflecting his pale face. "Thank you, Harrison. Thank you for leaving with nothing." His breath hitched, as if someone had choked his throat. I admired his stunned expression and leisurely added the final blow. "Oh, right, I forgot to tell you. The company you bought at a high price today is a shell. Inside, there are also 20 billion in debts. Good luck." Boom, I seemed to hear the sound of the string called reason in his mind completely snapping. His pupils shook violently, his whole body as if struck by lightning, frozen in place. On that always spirited face, the color drained away, leaving only ashen gray. A few seconds later, he seemed to come to his senses, turned sharply, and without even taking off his expensive custom suit, rushed madly towards the door. Holding the wine glass, I walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window, watching him rush out of the villa in disarray, pulling the car door several times before opening it, then speeding away and disappearing into the night. 3 years. I murmured softly to my blurred reflection on the glass window. Finally, this day has come. I downed the red wine in my hand in one gulp, the spicy liquid sliding down my throat, burning my esophagus, yet giving me an unprecedented sense of exhilaration. The phone screen lit up. It was a Facebook message from Vivian, carrying her usual green tea-like provocation. Sister, Harrison said he's going to give me a grand explanation. Did you receive it? Did he mention divorce to you? Looking at this message, the smile on my lips deepened. I leisurely typed a reply. He's bankrupt now, with 20 billion in debts. Do you still want this explanation? The message was sent successfully. Above the other party's chat box, it immediately showed the other party is typing. But those words flickered a few times and eventually disappeared. Read in seconds, no reply. This was the real her, Vivian. I threw the phone back onto the sofa, slumped into the leather chair, and looked up at the dazzling crystal chandelier on the ceiling. Every scene from these 3 years flashed before my eyes like a movie. Those humiliations, those tears, those heartbreaks in midnight dreams, tonight, finally came to an end. An end that I personally drew, a perfect period. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the gaps in the blinds, casting mottled shadows on the floor. I was awakened by the continuous vibration of a phone. It wasn't mine, it was Harrison's other private phone, left on the bedside table in his haste. I picked it up and saw the screen densely packed with Vivian's name. Dozens of missed calls and hundreds of Facebook messages. Harrison, is what the news says true? You're bankrupt? Answer the phone quickly. Tell me this isn't true. Are you lying to me? Didn't you say yesterday you'd give me an explanation? Harrison. You liar. Give me back my life. I scrolled through them one by one, the curve of my lips growing wider. This was the white moonlight he had loved for so many years, the pure, flawless, kind, and beautiful Vivian. When disaster strikes, everyone flies their own way. No, she didn't even bother to say everyone flies their own way, directly choosing the simplest and crudest method. I opened Harrison's Facebook, found Vivian's avatar, and pressed call. The phone rang for a long time, and just when I thought she wouldn't answer, her voice finally came through, laced with sobs and anger. Harrison. You finally picked up. You bastard. You. It's me. I interrupted her. The other end of the phone instantly went silent, so quiet I could hear her gasp. Shen. Celine? Her voice was full of panic and disbelief. It's me. I said leisurely, looking for him? Too bad, he probably doesn't have time to answer your call now. After all, 20 billion in debts is no small amount. It was you. You harmed him. She screamed, her voice piercing. Yes. I admitted straightforwardly, it was me. What, feeling heartbroken? Then hurry and accompany him. Husband and wife are birds of the same forest, he needs you the most now. You vicious woman. Compared to you, I'm far behind. I chuckled lightly, at least, I wouldn't kill an unborn child who hasn't even seen the world for money. The other end of the phone was deathly silent. I couldn't be bothered to waste more words with her, hung up directly, then used Harrison's Facebook to send her one last message. A screenshot of a bank's debt collection letter. On it, the red figure of 20 billion was shocking. After doing all this, I casually threw his phone into the nearby trash bin. Then, I opened my own phone. At the top of Weibo's hot search was several bold black characters. He group president bankrupt overnight, Harrison in debt of 20 billion, affectionate president persona collapses. I sat in a cafe in the most prosperous area of the city center, the huge floor-to-ceiling window facing the headquarters building of the He Group. Several workers were laboriously removing the huge He Group logo from the rooftop. I picked up my coffee and took a gentle sip. 3 years ago, on that afternoon, it was also on such a sunny day. I held the pregnancy test report just over 3 months, full of joy, waiting for Harrison to come home, wanting to surprise him. But what I waited for was devastating news. Vivian, while sketching in the suburbs, accidentally rolled down a hillside and was sent to the hospital. Harrison rushed home, eyes bloodshot, grabbing my wrist with such force that it almost crushed my bones. Weiwei has lost too much blood and urgently needs a transfusion. Your O-type blood, come with me to the hospital quickly. At that time I was already 3 months pregnant, and the doctor had explicitly warned that blood donation was absolutely not allowed in early pregnancy. I protected my abdomen, begging him bitterly, "Harrison, I'm pregnant, I can't donate blood, the child won't survive." He looked at me, his eyes devoid of any warmth, only piercing coldness and disgust. He sneered, his words like a poison knife stabbing deeply into my heart. "An unformed blood clot, can it compare to Weiwei's life? Celine, I'm telling you, if something happens to Weiwei, I'll make you and this bastard child bury with her." I was forcibly dragged by him and stuffed into the car. At the hospital, I was held down tightly on the operating table by 2 bodyguards. The cold needle pierced my vein, and I could feel the blood in my body, along with my vitality, being drawn out bit by bit. I looked at him in despair, tears blurring my vision. But he didn't even bother to give me a glance, turning and entering the adjacent room where Vivian was. Later, I had massive bleeding, and the child was gone. I lay on the cold hospital bed, feeling my world collapse. And he, Harrison, my husband, was in the next ward, inseparably guarding his white moonlight. My mother-in-law, Harrison's mother, rushed into my ward, pointing at my nose and cursing loudly. "You jinx. Bad luck star. Can't even keep a child, what's the use of our he family marrying you? I'm telling you, Celine, if you dare to hinder my son's relationship with Weiwei, I'll never let you off." Vivian, wearing a hospital gown, walked in with a pale face, kindly supporting my mother-in-law. "Auntie, don't be angry, it's not worth harming your health. Sister didn't do it on purpose, she's just weak." She turned her head, looking at me with a victor's smile on her face. "Sister, don't be sad. Harrison said that in the future, our child will be your child. We'll raise him well for you." At that moment, I lay on the hospital bed, my whole body cold. The sunlight outside the window was so bright, yet I felt like I had fallen into boundless hell. It was from that day that my heart died. I no longer longed for his love, no longer longed for the warmth of this family. Only one thought remained in my heart. Revenge. I wanted them to pay the most painful price for my dead child. I began to plan. I used the dowry my parents gave me back then to register a shell company. I deliberately managed the company into a mess, with losses every year, making everyone think I was a hopeless case. Secretly, however, I transferred the company's assets bit by bit through various channels. Then, in the company's name, I borrowed a full 20 billion from various underground banks and loan sharks. I spent a year turning this company into a perfect, massive debt trap. I was waiting for the right moment. Waiting for Harrison to jump into this trap I had meticulously prepared for him to vent anger for his white moonlight. Lydia, holding a cup of coffee, sat down opposite me. 3 years, Celine. She looked at me, her eyes filled with heartache and relief. You finally waited for him to voluntarily fall into it. I looked out the window at the He Group logo that had been half removed, revealing the mottled wall behind. Yes. I withdrew my gaze and looked at Lydia. The good show has just begun. The He Group was sealed, bank accounts frozen, and all partners terminated contracts overnight. More fatally, that 20 billion in massive debts pressed down on him like a mountain. Those loan sharks were not kind people. From the photos Lydia sent, I saw Harrison blocked at the company door by 7 or 8 burly men with tattooed arms, his once glossy Armani suit wrinkled, hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot, like a beast cornered. "Mr. Harrison, 20 billion, when are you paying it back?" The leader with a scarred face patted his face, smiling maliciously. He finally thought of me. When the call came, I was getting a manicure at the city's top club. The newly done French manicure shimmered with a lustrous glow under the lights, making my fingers appear even more slender and fair. "Celine." On the other end, his voice was so hoarse it was almost unrecognizable, with a tremble of despair. "I was wrong. I really was wrong. Please, for the sake of our 3 years as husband and wife, help me." I gently blew on my freshly done nails and casually said, "Mr. Harrison, did you dial the wrong number? We divorced yesterday." "No. That agreement doesn't count. He seemed to grasp the last straw, his voice suddenly rising. You can deny those debts. As long as you come forward and say the company is still yours, invalidate the signature, we can. Too bad. I interrupted his delusion. What I signed wasn't a divorce agreement, but an equity transfer document. In black and white, legally binding. Now, that company is yours, and naturally, so are the debts. Celine. You can't do this to me. He roared almost pleadingly. What exactly do you want to let me go? Let you go? I chuckled lightly. Harrison, do you deserve it? On the other end, there was a long silence, only his heavy, despair-mixed breathing. Not long after, he actually rushed directly to my doorstep. Through the surveillance video, I saw his knees buckle, thud as he knelt on the cold ground outside the door. That man who once looked down from above, too lazy to even glance at me properly, now knelt on the ground like a dog, begging bitterly. Celine. I beg you. I really know I was wrong. As long as you help me through this crisis, I'll agree to anything. I'll break up with Vivian immediately, we'll remarry, and live well. I turned off the monitor, leisurely walked to the door, and opened it. I looked down at him from above, at his bloodshot eyes, his pale trembling lips, his posture humble to the dust. Harrison. I spoke slowly, my voice cold without a trace of warmth. 3 years ago, when I miscarried and lay in the hospital, I also knelt like this begging you not to leave me, begging you to look at me. What did you say? I bent down, close to his ear, word by word, clearly repeating his words from back then. Celine, don't make a fool of yourself here, it's just an unformed blood clot, is it worth you acting like this life and death? If you dare to make a fuss again, we'll divorce. His face instantly turned as pale as paper, lips trembling violently, unable to say a word. I straightened up, looking at him coldly. Now, do you think you have any right to beg me? At that moment, my phone rang again. It was a voice message from Vivian, her voice urgent and panicked, with sobs. It was Adrian. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Aurora, where are you? Come back, let's talk properly. Adrian's voice was urgent. There's nothing to talk about, I said coldly. You must have acted on impulse. We grew up together, are all these years of feelings fake? Adrian, you know perfectly well what's real and what's not, I sneered. And please, don't contact me again. Aurora. Have you been threatened by Ethan? Don't you know who he is? He's just a bastard son, he'll never be accepted. Enough. I snapped. Adrian, you have no right to speak about him. I hung up and blocked Adrian's number. By the time I went downstairs, Ethan had already prepared dinner. Simple, 3 dishes and a soup, but it looked appetizing. What's wrong? You look awful, he said, sensing my mood. Adrian called, I told him truthfully. Ethan's face darkened instantly. What did he say? Nothing, just some irrelevant nonsense. I didn't want their brotherly relationship to sour further because of me. Aurora. Ethan set down his chopsticks and looked at me seriously. From now on, tell me everything. Don't carry things alone. Okay. I nodded, feeling warmth spread through me. In that moment, I suddenly thought maybe my choice had been the right one. The next morning I was awakened by a barrage of phone calls. First my mother, Aurora, what are you doing? Come home right now. Then my father, ungrateful daughter. Do you know how much disgrace you brought to the Chu family with your actions yesterday? Then Luna, Aurora, are you really with Ethan now? I hung up on them one by one, and finally just turned my phone off. Ethan came upstairs carrying breakfast, saw the worry on my face, and asked gently, what's wrong? My parents want me to come home. I sighed. Maybe this time we really will be at odds with the family. Do you regret it? No. I shook my head. I'm just a little unaccustomed. All my life I've never gone against my parents' wishes. Ethan sat at the edge of the bed and stroked my hair. Aurora, do you know why I refused to go back to the Shao household for so many years? Why? Because in that house I was always superfluous. I had to live very carefully, could not make mistakes, could not stand out, couldn't even express my true thoughts. There was an indescribable weariness in his eyes. It felt like being locked in a beautiful cage. I looked at him, a surge of tenderness swelling in my chest. But things are different now. Ethan took my hand. I have someone I want to protect, someone to fight for. Brother Ethan. Aurora, I know you're anxious now, but please trust me, I will give you the life you want. His gaze was steady, and somehow that put me at ease. After breakfast, Ethan took me to his company. You have work to do, wouldn't it be inconvenient to bring me along? I said, a little embarrassed. Inconvenient how? Ethan said as if it were obvious, from now on you'll be my boss's wife. Boss's wife, my face flushed. Ethan's company was in an office building downtown, bigger than I had imagined. The employees greeted him with great respect, but when they looked at me there was curiosity in their eyes. This is Miss Chu, Ethan introduced simply. From now on she'll be our boss's wife. Me. Staff. Boss, what is this? The assistant asked cautiously. I proposed successfully yesterday, Ethan lied coolly. I stared at him with wide eyes, how could this man be so shameless? Congratulations, boss. Congratulations, Madam Boss, the employees all offered their felicitations. Ethan pulled me into his office. How can you say something like that? I protested softly. How is it a lie? Ethan sat in the boss chair and drew me into his arms. I have been pursuing you, and you did agree. But we haven't defined our relationship yet. It's defined now. Ethan looked down at me. Aurora, be my girlfriend. My heart raced so fast it felt like it would burst out of my chest. Is this a proposal? It is. Then I'll think about it. Before I could finish, Ethan bent down and kissed me. His kiss was domineering, carrying an irresistible force. I felt dizzy from the kiss, almost forgetting to breathe. Have you made up your mind now? He asked, lips close to mine. Yes. My voice was as small as a mosquito. What? I can't hear you. I've decided. I said loudly, then bashfully buried my face in his chest. Ethan laughed, his voice low and seductive. Just then, the office door was pushed open. Ethan, we need to talk. I looked up and saw Adrian. His expression was dark, anger burning in his eyes. Ethan shielded me, looking at him coldly. Who let you in? Aurora, come back with me, our engagement still stands. Adrian ignored Ethan entirely and spoke straight to me. I've made it very clear, it's over between us. I stood up from Ethan's embrace. Are you angry because of what happened yesterday? I can cut ties with Ruachi. Adrian looked sincere. Aurora, we've grown up together, can you just forget all these years of feelings like that? Adrian, don't you think it's ridiculous to say that now? I sneered. You never cared about me, why are you putting on this act? How could I not care about you? Enough. Ethan stood up and walked to Adrian. Aurora is my girlfriend now. You'd better know your limits. Girlfriend? Adrian couldn't believe it. How long have you two known each other? She was still my fiancée yesterday. Time isn't the point, Ethan said coolly. What matters is that she chose me. Adrian's face darkened further. Ethan, don't think taking Aurora from me makes you a winner. You'll always be an illegitimate son, never fit to stand in the spotlight. Is that so? Ethan narrowed his eyes, a dangerous aura radiating from him. Do you want to see how much strength this so-called unfit illegitimate son actually has? With that, he picked up the internal line on the table. Assistant Zhang, have the legal department prepare, I'm going to buy shares in Shao Corporation. Adrian's face changed drastically. Are you crazy? I'm not crazy, I'm just protecting my woman, Ethan sneered. If the Xiao family won't accept me, then I'll make them bear the Ethan name. I stared at Ethan in shock. I hadn't expected him to have such boldness. Adrian trembled with anger, pointing at us and unable to say a word. Finally he spat out viciously, "You'll regret this," and slammed the door. The office fell silent. I looked at Ethan. "Was what you said earlier true?" "Of course it's true." Ethan sat back down. "I've wanted to do this for a long time, I just never had the right opportunity." "Then your resources are enough to buy the entire Adrian family," Ethan said casually. I was utterly stunned. How many more secrets does this man have? News of Ethan's acquisition of the Adrian Group spread quickly, and the whole business world was speculating about the reasons behind it. I sat in Ethan's office, watching the financial news coverage of the matter, my feelings a tangled mess. Regret? Ethan came back from a meeting and saw my worried face. "I just wonder if it was too selfish of me to drive you to a complete break with your family." "Aurora." Ethan walked over and crouched in front of me. "My conflict with the Xiao family has a long history, it didn't start because of you." "But, there is no but. He took my hand. "Also, I've never considered the Xiao family my family. In my heart, you are my family." Tears welled in my eyes at once. How does this man always manage to say things that make my heart flutter? "Boss, Mr. Chu and Mrs. Chu are here." The assistant knocked and came in. My heart tightened, my parents were here. "Let them in," Ethan stood and said calmly. Before long, my parents appeared at the office door. The moment my mother saw me she burst into tears. "Aurora, are you trying to kill your mother with worry?" My father wore an angry expression. "Aurora, you are coming home with us right now." "Father, Mother." I stood up, feeling a little helpless. "Uncle Chu, Aunt Chu." Ethan greeted them politely. "Please have a seat." "Ethan, what kind of potion did you give my daughter?" My father glared at him. "I didn't give Aurora any potion, I only gave her the right to choose," Ethan said calmly. "Choice? What does a 20-something girl know about choice?" My mother wiped her tears. "Ethan, I've watched you grow up, you're a good boy, but you and Aurora really aren't suitable." "Why aren't we suitable?" "You're an illegitimate child, your status doesn't match Aurora's. And Adrian and Aurora grew up together, they're the true match made in heaven." Hearing that, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Mom. How can you say that about brother Ethan?" "Aurora, you're still young and don't understand." "I'm not young. I'm already 23. I said, agitated. "Besides, Adrian doesn't love me at all, he loves Rachel." "So what? How many women a man has on the side is normal. As long as the one he marries is you, that's what matters," my father said dismissively. I can hardly believe what I just heard. "Dad, what are you saying?" "I'm talking reality. Adrian is the heir of the Xiao family, marry him and you'll be the head matron of the Xiao household." "And Ethan?" "He's just an illegitimate child, he'll never be taken seriously." "Enough." I stood up angrily. "I won't allow you to speak about brother Ethan like that." "Uncle Chu, Aunt Chu." Ethan suddenly spoke, his voice very calm. "I know you're worried Aurora will suffer if she follows me, but I can promise I'll protect her with my life." "What will you use to protect her?" my father sneered. "What does an illegitimate son like you have besides a pretty face?" Ethan didn't get angry, instead he picked up a document from the desk and handed it to my father. "What's this?" my father asked, puzzled, as he took it. "Share certificate of Xingchen Group," Ethan said lightly. "Xingchen Group is a company I founded by myself, it's currently worth 50 billion. How is that possible? Besides, I have some other investments and properties, my total assets are roughly 80 billion, Ethan continued. "Uncle Aurora, do you think someone like me deserves Aurora?" The office was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. My mother stared at Ethan in shock, speechless for a long time. I was completely stunned too. 80 billion? What kind of figure is that? Even if you're rich, your background. my father tried to say. Dad. I cut him off. Enough. In my eyes, brother Ethan is better than anyone. Aurora, calm down a bit. I am calm. I took a deep breath. Dad, Mom, I've made up my mind. I want to be with brother Ethan. If you can't accept that, then we'll sever ties. My mother burst into even harder sobs. Aurora, are you trying to kill your mother with worry? Aunt Aurora, please don't cry. Ethan handed her a tissue. I promise you, I will take good care of Aurora. But if you two are together, the whole high society will make fun of us. My mother choked out. Let them laugh. I said firmly, I don't care what others think. My father glanced at the documents in his hand, then at Ethan. His expression kept shifting. Finally, he sighed. Ethan, if you really have decided to marry Aurora, then we need to discuss conditions. Dad. I looked at him in disbelief. What conditions? Ethan asked. First, you must make Aurora's identity public. She cannot be kept as a secret lover. Of course. Second, you must give Aurora a formal wedding. You mustn't make her suffer. I'll give her the grandest wedding in the world. Lastly. My father paused. You must promise never to betray Aurora. Ethan nodded seriously. I swear on my life, in this lifetime I will love only Aurora. Tears instantly welled up in my eyes. My mother stopped crying as well, looking at us with a complicated expression. All right. My father finally relented, but I have one condition, you must get engaged first before you can formally date. Fine. Ethan agreed without hesitation. And so, amid all the chaos, my parents accepted my relationship with Ethan. Although the process had some twists and turns, the outcome was good. The engagement ceremony was scheduled for a month later, at Aurora's estate. During that month, Ethan formally launched a takeover of the Adrian Group, sending shockwaves through the business world. Ethan is actually that rich? Luna looked at the news in astonishment. Aurora, what kind of crazy luck did you stumble into? What crazy luck, this is called having an eye for a diamond, I said proudly. But now rumors were circulating that I had betrayed Adrian for money. My good mood vanished in an instant. Let them say whatever they want, I don't care. But I do care. Ethan came in from outside, his face a bit dark. What's wrong? I asked worriedly. Someone online was spreading lies that you chose me for money. Ethan sat down beside me. Some people are even saying I used money to steal Adrian's fiancée. You believe that? Of course I don't believe it, but I don't want people to speak of you that way. Ethan took my hand. Aurora, why don't we just get married now and skip the engagement? Huh? I was stunned. Why suddenly get married? Because I want everyone to know you are my wife, Ethan's wife, and if anyone dares say a bad word about you, I'll make them pay. Danger glittered in Ethan's eyes, making my heart race. But we've only been dating for a month. Time is not the issue. Ethan closed in on me. Aurora, marry me. Is this a proposal? I asked, blushing. Yes. Ethan suddenly pulled a delicate ring box from his pocket. Aurora, marry me. Let me love you for the rest of my life. Inside the box was a pink diamond ring, a full 5 carats, sparkling in the sunlight. Oh my God! Luna exclaimed beside me. How much does that cost? I ignored Luna's outcry and stared at Ethan in a daze. Why pink? Because you looked so beautiful in a pink dress 10 years ago, and since then pink became my favorite color, Ethan said gently. Celine. It's all you. You made me like this. I'll kill you. She roared like a madwoman, raising the knife and charging at me. I didn't move, didn't even lift an eyelid. Just 1 second before her knife tip touched me, several security guards who had been ambushing nearby rushed in instantly, pressing her hard to the ground. The fruit knife clang fell on the clean floor. I slowly stood up, walked in front of her, looking down at her. Vivian, did you think I wasn't prepared for this move? I raised my hand, pointing to the surveillance camera in the corner. From the moment you entered this building, every move you made was captured. Armed assault, attempted intentional injury, these charges combined are enough for you to spend several years inside. She lay on the ground, looking at my cold eyes, finally collapsing. What did I do wrong? She wailed loudly, her makeup smeared, looking disheveled and ridiculous. I just wanted a good life. I just wanted a rich man. What did I do wrong? You were wrong I squatted down, my voice light but every word clear, not building your happiness on others' pain. You were wrong in harming an innocent, unborn child for your wealth and glory. The police came quickly, dragging her up from the ground. As she was taken away, she still struggled frantically, turning back to glare at me viciously. Celine, don't be smug. Harrison won't let you go. He'll avenge me. I sneered. He now can't even protect himself. The next day, more explosive news came. During the police investigation, Vivian was found to have aborted 3 times for different men to scam money. She learned the news while in the detention center, realizing that her life was completely ruined, and she had a complete mental breakdown and went insane. When Harrison visited her, she was wearing a blue and white striped patient's gown, her hair was like dry grass, and her eyes were vacant. Seeing Harrison, she suddenly pounced to the iron window, pointing at him and cursing loudly. It's all you. You useless trash. Can't even handle a woman. Harmed me to this point. Why don't you die? Why don't you die? She laughed maniacally, cried miserably. Harrison looked at this woman he once treasured, now turned into this mad appearance, not knowing what to feel. He only knew he had personally ruined his own life and pushed his so-called true love into an abyss of no return. Harrison was unwilling. He was unwilling to be utterly defeated like this. Father critically ill, mother collapsed, lover mad, company bankrupt, himself in huge debt. He blamed all this on me. He began like a madman, searching everywhere for a chance to turn things around. He contacted a few business friends he once had good relations with, set up a gathering, trying to convince them to join forces against the Shin group. As long as we take down Celine, take down Shin, we can split Shin's vast assets equally. At the wine table, eyes red, he agitated madly. Those people were all old foxes in business. On the surface, they agreed fully, calling each other brothers, saying they would definitely help fully. But as soon as they turned, they packaged Harrison's plan along with screenshots of their chat records and sent them to me intact. What a joke. Oppose the current Shin group? Oppose Raymond? Oppose that ruthless and meticulous Celine? They hadn't lived enough. At the next day's Shin group regular board meeting, in front of all directors and media, I projected those chat records on the big screen. Mr. Harrison seems to want to make a last struggle. Facing the camera, I smiled lightly. Too bad, he seems to have overestimated his influence. You think you still have friends? Those friends who were brotherly with Harrison the day before immediately distanced themselves in front of the media. We're not close. Really not close. It was Mr. Harrison himself drunk and talking nonsense, we just humored him. Our company and Shin Group have always been good strategic partners, how could we do such a thing? Harrison was completely isolated. He lost even his last, false allies. This news quickly reached the hospital. His father lay on the ICU bed, seeing this news on TV. He watched on the screen his worthless son become the laughingstock of the city. Watching those former friends draw clear lines with him. The old man, proud all his life, couldn't bear such stimulation. He trembled with anger, pointing at the TV, couldn't catch his breath, the ECG instantly became a straight line. Harrison knelt in front of his father's memorial hall, as if his soul was drained, eyes empty, motionless. Harrison's mother, in black clothes, rushed over, pounding his back madly. It's all you. You beast. She cried heartbreakingly, her voice hoarse. I told you long ago, that vixen Vivian is no good. You wouldn't listen. You had to be bewitched by her. Look what you've done to our family now. You angered your dad to death. Are you satisfied? Celine was so good back then. Such a good daughter-in-law, you had to divorce her. Now retribution has come. Retribution. It was in this chaotic scene that I appeared at the funeral. Dressed in a well-tailored black suit, wearing sunglasses, holding a bunch of white chrysanthemums. My appearance instantly quieted the entire memorial hall. All eyes fell on me. I ignored everyone, walked straight to his father's portrait, bowed deeply, then placed the white chrysanthemums on the altar. Harrison slowly raised his head, seeing me. Those empty eyes finally showed a ripple. It was hate, regret, despair. You, satisfied? He asked hoarsely. I looked down at him, sunglasses hiding all my emotions. I'm just here to send Uncle He on his last journey. My voice was calm. 3 years ago when I married into the He family, he wasn't bad to me. After saying that, I didn't glance at him again, turned, stepped in high heels, and walked out step by step from this place that suffocated me for 3 years. Behind, Harrison's mother's more miserable cries, and Harrison's suppressed, beast-like whimpers. All this had nothing to do with me anymore. After the funeral, Harrison completely broke down. He locked himself in that villa that once belonged to us, now empty, not seeing daylight. A week later, I received a thick express delivery. Inside was a long letter. Written by Harrison. The letter paper was full of messy handwriting and dried tear stains. Celine, sorry. The letter started with these 3 words. Then, dozens of pages of his confession. Celine, every wrong thing I did these 3 years, I remember clearly. I remember when you were just pregnant, severe morning sickness, suddenly craving strawberry cake from that shop in the South City at midnight. I thought it was too far, scolded you spoiled, then turned and slept. I remember you rolling in bed with stomach pain, calling me, but I was at the bar drinking with Vivian because she said she was in a bad mood. I told you to go to the hospital yourself, don't bother me with trivial things. I remember on your birthday, you booked the restaurant a month in advance, waiting joyfully for me. But because Vivian said she wanted to see MJ's concert, I bought expensive tickets last minute to go with her, only sent you a text saying company emergency. I remember the day you miscarried, lying in a pool of blood, pulling my pant leg, begging me to save the child. But I shook off your hand, saying that blood clot wasn't important, Vivian's life was. I remember. I remember too much. Celine, I'm not human, I'm a beast. I treated the true heart you offered me as garbage, discarded it like old shoes. I took that poisonous woman Vivian's lies as imperial decrees. If time could rewind, I definitely wouldn't let go of your hand again. At the end of the letter, he said he loved me. He said he now understood that he had always loved me. For Vivian, it was just a youthful obsession of unattainable desire. I read the entire letter word by word. Every word in the letter was like a small knife, reopening my already scabbed wounds. It hurt. Still hurt. After all, I had once so genuinely loved this man. But after reading, I just calmly walked to the fireplace, struck a match, and threw this letter, along with my pitiful past, into the roaring flames. The orange-red firelight reflected on my face. Too late, Harrison. Everything is too late. A cup of warm coffee was handed to me. Jason, at some point, was standing behind me. He looked at the ashes about to burn out in the fireplace, softly asking, "Still thinking about him?" I shook my head, took the coffee, and sipped. No. I'm just thinking, how did I fall in love with such a person back then? And now? Jason's gaze carried a careful anticipation. Will you love again? I turned my head, looking at his gentle eyes, suddenly smiled. That was my first genuine smile from the heart in 3 years. Yes. But, it won't be him anymore. Jason's eyes instantly brightened, as if stars had fallen into them. Then do I have a chance? He asked somewhat nervously. I looked at him, not answering immediately. My life had just been rebuilt from ruins. I needed time. Maybe. I said smiling, but, start as friends first. He nodded vigorously, smiling brilliantly. That weekend, he invited me to watch a movie. It was a light comedy. In the dark theater, listening to the laughter of the audience around, eating sweet popcorn, I felt a long-lost, thorough relaxation. Turns out, life without Harrison could be so beautiful. Harrison eventually crawled out of that shell. When he saw me and Jason walking out of the cinema together, saw that bright, radiant smile on my face he had never seen, he completely collapsed. That kind of smile, without any flattery or catering, was pure, heartfelt joy. He remembered our 3-year marriage. I couldn't recall when I had smiled like that at him. My smiles were always cautious flattery, with a hint of humble plea. And now, I gave that most beautiful smile to another man. This realization, like a poisoned dagger, stabbed deeply into his already riddled heart. He was jealous to the point of madness. That night, alone, he staggeringly climbed to the rooftop of the He Group headquarters. That building he once prided himself on, now changed hands. He stood at the edge of the rooftop, cold wind blowing his clothes fluttering. He took out his phone and sent me the last message. Celine, sorry. If there's a next life, let me love you. I love you. When I saw this message, my brow twitched. I immediately called Lydia. He might do something stupid. Are the people you arranged in place? Don't worry, Celine. Lydia's voice was calm and steady. Firefighters and ambulance have been on standby downstairs half an hour ago. If he jumps, he'll only land on the air cushion. I hung up, looking at the pale I love you on the phone screen, sneered. Harrison, you don't even have the qualification to die. I want you alive, well alive, watching how I step by step towards happiness. I want you to use the rest of your life to atone for the mistakes you committed. He still jumped in the end. With full regret and despair, he leaped. But he didn't die. He fell heavily on the rescue air cushion already laid by firefighters, the huge impact still breaking several ribs and causing comminuted fractures in both legs. He lay on the cold hospital bed, body wrapped in bandages, eyes emptily staring at the ceiling. The doctor said he might spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Vivian in the mental hospital saw this news on TV. She laughed maniacally at the screen. Serves you right. Retribution. Harrison, you trash, serves you right. If it weren't for your uselessness back then, how would I end up like this? Why didn't you fall to death? Harrison's mother dragged her tired body to the hospital, looking at her son like a cripple on the bed, crying heartbreakingly. Son, it's all Mom's fault. Mom was blind back then, shouldn't have forced you, shouldn't have driven away Celine. Harrison slowly closed his eyes. 2 lines of hot tears slid from his eye corners, into his pale temples. Mom. I regret it. I really, regret it. But regret is the most useless thing in this world. This finally ended in a dramatic way. Major media rushed to report the entire event from beginning to end. Heiress marries down for love, betrayed, 3 years of endurance for perfect revenge, year's most satisfying revenge drama, ex-husband leaves with nothing, white moonlight imprisoned. Public opinion showed a one-sided trend. All sympathy and support surged towards me. While Harrison and Vivian were nailed to the moral cross, cursed by thousands. Under the arrangement of the Shin Group's PR team, I accepted an exclusive interview from a mainstream finance media. In front of the camera, dressed in a proper Chanel suit, composed and elegant. For the first time, I personally recounted these 3 years' experiences to the public. No tearful complaints, no grievances. I just calmly stated the facts. I once thought love was omnipotent, could reform everything, conquer everything. I thought, as long as I gave enough, I could get equal return. But I was wrong. In this world, some people, some hearts, can't be warmed. They don't deserve love, even less forgiveness. After the interview video aired, it caused a huge sensation on the network. The whole net felt sorry for me, this representative of beautiful, strong, miserable. Celine is so miserable. Gave up billions for love, only to get ruthless betrayal and harm. Harrison is a thorough scumbag. Deserves bankruptcy. Deserves disability. Vivian, that gold digger, sentencing her 5 years is too lenient. Under the tsunami-like public opinion pressure, Harrison on the hospital bed was forced through his lawyer to issue a public apology letter. In the letter, he admitted all facts of marital cold violence, forcing my miscarriage, and being deceived by Vivian, sincerely apologizing to me and the public. But netizens didn't buy it at all. Now you know to apologize? What were you doing earlier? If apologies worked, what need for law? Wish scumbag and gold digger locked forever, torment each other at the bottom for life. Harrison's photos were made into various memes, spreading wildly online. The end of love brain, scumbag's retribution. He became the biggest joke on the net. Vivian's end also came. Those tycoons she scammed united, with solid evidence, she was finally sentenced to 5 years for fraud. Harrison's mother, to treat Harrison and repay some lower-interest bank debts, sold the He family's last ancestral home. The mother and son moved from the mountaintop mansion to a dark, damp low-rent house in the suburbs. I stood in the president's office on the top floor of the Shin Group, overlooking this prosperous city through the huge floor-to-ceiling window. 3 years. I said softly. I finally won. A pair of warm arms gently embraced me from behind. Jason rested his chin on my shoulder, voice gentle. No, we won. He turned his head, planting a gentle kiss on my cheek. The road ahead, no matter how long, I'll walk with you. I leaned in his arms, looking at the myriad lights outside, my heart peaceful. Yes. Darkness has passed, dawn will come. My life has just begun. 1 year later. Under my leadership, the Shin Group's business map expanded further, market value doubled. I thus appeared on the latest Forbes cover, called Business World's Youngest and Most Decisive Queen. Career smooth sailing, love also quietly blossomed. One evening, Jason on the beach bathed in sunset glow, knelt on one knee, took out the long-prepared diamond ring. Celine, marry me. Looking at the starlight in his eyes, smiling, tearing, I nodded. Our engagement banquet was grand and solemn. All the city's elites came to congratulate. At the banquet, father held my hand, eyes slightly red. Celine, not stopping you back then was dad's biggest mistake in life. But now, seeing Jason by your side, seeing you so happy, Dad, is relieved. I smiled and held his arm. Dad, I don't regret. Those 3 years' experiences, though painful, made me grow, let me see clearly many people and things. Without the past me, there wouldn't be the present me. And at the other end of the city, in a low-rent room less than 30 square meters. Harrison sat in a creaking old wheelchair, staring blankly at the live news of our engagement banquet on TV. On the screen, I wore a dazzling starry gown, arm in arm with Jason, smiling brightly and movingly. That kind of happiness, he never gave me, nor ever saw on my face. He reached out, trembling, wanting to touch my face on the screen. But could only touch the cold, dusty glass. Harrison's mother came in with a bowl of bland white porridge, saw the scene on TV, sighed. Son, eat something. Don't watch, watching, just adds to your troubles. Harrison slowly lowered his head, shoulders shaking violently. Mom. He finally couldn't hold back, wailing like a child. I really lost her. I personally lost the person who loved me most in this world. The cries were miserable, full of endless regret. But no amount of regret could bring back the past. Vivian, due to good behavior in prison, was released a year early. But she fought in prison, leaving a long scar on her face from eye corner to mouth corner, completely disfiguring her. She couldn't find work, penniless, could only scavenge garbage for a living. She once ran to the Shin Group building downstairs, wanting to beg me, willing to be my slave. But she was firmly blocked by security outside, couldn't even enter the gate. The security captain looked at her, sneering as he relayed my words. Miss Celine said, in this lifetime, she doesn't want to see disgusting people like you again. Jason and I held hands, walking on the beach by the sea, behind us long, intertwined shadows. The sea breeze blew my long hair, He gently tucked it behind my ear. He asked me, regret? I was stunned for a moment, then understood what he asked. I shook my head, facing the setting sun, smiled. Regret what? Regret loving him? No, I don't regret. Because of that terrible experience, I understood what true love is, and ultimately met a better you.